So with that, Herwig, I think it's time to transition a little bit into our main topic segment, which is an exciting one to jump into.
Yeah, definitely a downward trend these last few weeks, but not surprising given the concentration of T0 there and overstock compared to all the other tokens. It's just a repeated conversation we're having these last few weeks.
Yeah, it is what it is. I think as more tokens get listed, as these lockup periods end, we're going to see more of that stability and have some more interesting things to talk about. But last week, Dan LeBeau, who's a founding partner, of Lightbulb Capital, prompted his LinkedIn network with a potentially tense question: Is Ethereum the best blockchain to issue a security token on? And there was a lot of people that engaged around this, but ultimately I found it to be not such a big deal. Why that is, you might be wondering? Well, it's actually because security tokens can change blockchains and move to a different chain, at least far easier than their crypto asset counterparts.
Right, so Dan said specifically, quote, "Mostly I am being laughed at when I caution against the use of Ethereum as a platform to issue security tokens on. Specifically citing fork risks as a possible critical problem. And the first thing I will say to that, listeners, is that anyone laughing at this question has their head stuck in the sand. These are exactly the type of questions all issuers need to be considering when exploring using security tokens."
Absolutely, Herwig. And I want to start off by giving a shout out to Dan for engaging LinkedIn with this question, despite the reactions he got from asking some of his network directly, apparently.
Yes, totally. And looking forward to more of your posts, Dan. Now, let's review what he is saying and some of the reactions before we share ours, Kyle. So, specifically, Dan is talking about the risk that you issue security tokens on Ethereum and Ethereum gets forked, just like it originally did when it got hacked and the community voted to fork. The original Ethereum blockchain became known as Ethereum Classic and has since developed its own community, while, obviously the more known Ethereum network is the mainstream one and we all know and use it. And Dan's point is what happens if that occurs again? A new fork, a new version of that blockchain is made. Does your security token now get stuck on an outdated version of Ethereum essentially?
And it's a great question because there's all sorts of reasons this could happen, like the original fork, which was a hack, or possibly upgrades to the infrastructure, or a divide in the developer community, or many other reasons like last week's bug, which is what caused this discussion in the first place, which was an unannounced fork that resulted from the developer community that was fixing a problem, but it did force many providers to suspend Ethereum transactions for that time during the fix. Apparently, according to some of the programmers, they've been doing this to fix bugs for quite a bit in secret, in fear of people exploiting these bugs before they're able to patch it. So it does beg the question, how do people react?
So some of the comments took the time to promote their own solution, of course, and point out that Ethereum isn't the only choice, it's fair to say. And others focused on bringing in experts, including Clemens Wan, a solutions architect at Consensus. Someone assumed that since central banks are working with Consensus, they must know the answer. But it's probably not what you'd want to hear, but it is what you'd expect, which is that central banks are all using private blockchains, basically their own version of Ethereum to play with. But Clemens does point out that the large developer community and the security token community are what make Ethereum great. But to me, that doesn't go enough to answer the question. Klaus Scanning, the CEO of DigiShares, which is an issuance platform, had it right in my opinion, and obviously your comment too, Kyle, which is similar, which is to say that issuance platforms are building in the capabilities to change or upgrade the underlying blockchain. So simply put, if you combine everyone else's information and you combine the answers, Ethereum still represents the best choice today, but may not be tomorrow. And because we are dealing with securities and not unique tokens tied to the individual blockchain, like a cryptocurrency or a utility token, we don't need to worry about changing or upgrading the blockchain because the underlying asset doesn't get affected. It's not as simple as it sounds unless the issuance platform makes it very easy, but it is doable and possible.
Yeah, I had a similar perspective as well. Like, I agree that Ethereum might not be the long-term solution. We can't see the future, we don't know. But the reality is that we cannot predict that how these glaring issues are going to be affected around using a specific blockchain, namely scalability issues that have caused the price per transaction, commonly known as the gas fee, to rise uncontrollably, especially with the Ethereum network with this DeFi craze and everything here, and it's been a real issue. This has caused serious network issues and infrastructure delays, most notably, as we've talked about earlier in the podcast, to Realty, who used to pay daily dividends through the blockchain and now actually had to resort to paying weekly instead of daily just because of these high fees associated with the transactions, which hurts that value proposition that we've covered in the past. However, I don't know if this should prevent an issuer from using Ethereum right now. as reissuance is a relatively straightforward process in the event of a better solution that comes to the market. Additionally, as we've covered here on the show before, many exchanges still operate via street name and don't actually use blockchain for their settlement process at all, reducing the reliance on picking a specific blockchain for the future and likely easing the transition of reissuance. At present day, I still see Ethereum as the best blockchain solution, mainly due to the developer support, which is an incredibly crucial piece for that interjurisdictional operability. As all these exchanges are building out their solutions and smart contract settlement and all these different pieces, as long as they're all working together on the same kind of tech solution, that's a huge benefit for liquidity and for any of these issuer support. I'm also not sure that we've seen any other blockchains that provide the same level of community support as well as issuer adoption and scalability in terms of the amount of issuing or issuers that they've offered. And so this provides many features of the blockchain to work smoothly. And so it's something that we can't quite say for many of the other blockchains yet that are still trying to prove this concept, still trying to get their first few offerings off the ground and trading. So a lot of my comment revolved around this idea of reissuance, which from your perspective, Herwig, what does the process for changing a blockchain actually look like?
So first we need to, record all the previous transactions, which is easy enough to do if it's on a public blockchain, of course. And if it's on a private one, you just need the permission and access, right? This way we don't lose the historical transactions, and this can be done through blockchain explorers and then adding the data to the new blockchain. Then there is, of course, the token perspective. If you are just upgrading the existing blockchain, the token experience will most likely be unharmed most of the time, just as we have seen with Ethereum itself. If the token is being moved to a new blockchain, though, then it will depend on the issuer controls. The issuer may be able to burn the tokens and simply issue new ones via the issuance platform, but maybe if no such option exists, the issuer will need to offer a swapping solution to the investor. So let's give an example here. One CEO token on Ethereum can then be swapped for one CEO token on Tezos. And perhaps the issuer has the ability to freeze all other transfer types. So as you can see, there is potentially development work and user experience changes that need to be supported here, which is why it's not necessarily easy, but an issuance platform plays a huge role here in either making this process very simple or very, very difficult for the issuer. So that's the key takeaway for our issuers, I think. Ask your tokenization platform if they can support upgrading or changing the blockchain.
Yeah, we've actually seen a reissuance happen with a security token that we've covered on the show recently, which was Science Blockchain. The firm issued their own security token, SCI, representing interest in their blockchain investment fund, but soon realized that they needed to upgrade their token, presumably for compliance or interoperability standards. So the firm worked with Securitize to reissue shares of the newly minted SCI2 tokens. The company incurred costs of issuing again, which may vary depending on the issuance platform that you use, but they successfully conducted the reissuance and are now seeking liquidity options to list their SCI2 tokens on a secondary market, proving that this process is possible and one that does not need to hurt your token long term, as the value proposition of the asset is on the financial layer, not necessarily on the technical layer from the blockchain protocol. Blockchain Capital, currently trading on Open Finance, also reissued back in 2017 due to a compliance bug that allowed the token to trade freely without KYC on crypto exchange known as Ether Delta. The firm elected to reissue, also choosing Securitize for this process, and was able to coordinate with the team to burn their outstanding tokens and reissue newly upgraded tokens to their existing investors. Both of these cases provide examples and precedent for reissuance, but both actually used Ethereum for the reissuance as well as the original issuance, and so they didn't actually change blockchains, they just changed tokens. Changing blockchains would definitely add an extra layer of complexity, as Herwig mentioned, due to the requirements around porting the ledger from one chain to another, but as we've seen, this process shouldn't be something that adds too much friction, provided that the new blockchain provides the additional benefits for token holders, which is why you do it in the first place.
Yeah, those are absolutely fantastic example, Kyle. Security tokens have already conducted this process before successfully, and that's a great thing because I don't think security tokens would be viable if this wasn't the case. After all, this is technology we're talking about. We expect it to improve, we expect it to get better, so we need to have these controls and capabilities in place. And there you have it, listeners. That's a wrap. Another great main topic, and that closes out episode 70 of the Security Token Show. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something new. Thanks for listening, and thanks again to our episode sponsor, INX.
Remember to submit any news or articles to stomarket.com/news and to reach out to us directly on Twitter or LinkedIn to keep the conversation going. I look forward to hearing from you, and thanks again for listening. Talk to you next week.